Our project site here is located on the Coral Coast, which is the highest density of tourism in Fiji. This is definitely the place for the big mega resorts. What a lot of tourists don't realise is just kilometres away is villages, communities living quite a subsistence lifestyle, very different to what they're experiencing at the resorts, very different.
Agroforestry is a system of growing trees together with crops. We know that the smallholders, the farmers in these countries, don't have any incentive for planting trees. In fact, there are a lot of reasons why they wouldn't plant trees. So what we wanted to do in this project is to give those farmers some incentives and ways to help them to get income that would encourage them to both keep their trees and to plant more trees.
Early on in our project, we wanted to see how we could work with the tourism industry in some kind of funding arrangement with agroforestry and conservation initiatives. And we formed a relationship with the Shangri-La Fijian resort, which is the largest one in Fiji. We wanted to know what some challenges they're facing environmentally, and they highlighted that a key concern for them into the future is the sediment runoff from the upper and middle catchments into their reef system.
The Shangri-La resort is on Yanutha Island, which is down in Kuthuvu Bay. And we have the Nadroumai River and some other small tributaries and small rivers that come out through here in the catchment. So the lower catchment is pretty much completely deforested. And then as we head up into the mid to upper catchment and the hillsides, we see more degraded, cleared areas. There's also quite a lot of extraction of timber from the area at the moment for the nearby biogas plant, which is therefore having greater impacts into the catchment.
This is the upper catchment for upper Nadroumai catchment. They are harvesting here all the logs here to be burned for energy. This will be a major problem for the catchment because of the land degradation. A lot of sediments go down to the main waterway and fill up the lagoon.
So what happens is every time it rains, we get really large flooding through the area, and the sedimentation from the upper catchment is flowing down through the middle catchment into the lower catchment and ending up on the reef that surrounds the Shangri-La resort.
The Nadroumai community actually, their river system flows straight into the reef of Shangri-La, so this is an important area to work with.
So yeah, we've worked with Cherise and the team, the ACO team, for quite a while now, working with the community up at Nadroumai. The whole idea was to empower our communities in the upper catchment to look after their areas, because we can't look after our reefs without the help of the resource users in the upper hills.
We're in the catchment just near the Nadroumai village. So the way this bank used to work is we had the bank terrace, and then where these trees are lying, there was actually a big sandbank there. So these trees were actually holding the bank up. So we've lost 2.5 metres of the bank. Even these big trees, without having enough support behind them, were just washed away. We're talking about thousands of years worth of accumulation, soil that really is the future for these guys, being washed down to the resorts.
So we looked at ways that we could do a agroforestry demonstration site in Nadroumai that would actually help the river system.
One of our ideas or plans was the idea of a revegetation program that focused on high-value productive tree species that could be planted along the riverbanks to provide that erosion control, but also to provide an alternative income for farmers. So they had a need for more trees and more productive trees.
When people plant a tree, it might take 3, 5, 10 years before they'll get any return for that tree. One of the things we wanted to do in this project was to look at ways that we could set up plantings where they could get returns from their crops in the short term, along with the long-term returns from their tree crops.
We were then able to go to the community and find out that the women have opportunities in not just Indigenous nuts, but also coffee That then led to the design of the agroforestry systems, incorporating Indigenous nuts with coffee and vegetable gardens for their subsistence activities. To engage women in this agroforestry it's quite provocative to plant a tree. This is a land claim. They would need a formal land tenure arrangement or lease, and this is not really achievable for women in the current structure of communities in Fiji. But by developing the nursery, we were able to work around the land tenure. Instead of going against the land tenure constraints, we actually worked within it, and we were able to provide them immediate income opportunities through the nursery, through growing seedlings and Indigenous nut trees, while they wait for the agroforestry systems to produce for them in 3 to 4 years.
Welcome to our nursery. We are planting breadfruit, dawa. This is tavola and kavika, shosap, vutu, dawa, mandarin, molly, molicana. We call it molicana. It's a pablemos. It's eggplant. Some of the eggplants there. This is the one we eat it today.
This process started from talking to people, asking what they wanted. The first training was about some potting mixes, and then we had some trays, and we grew basically vegetables because the women had an immediate need for that, so they could relate to that really easily. And then the idea of the tree is kind of followed on from that.
So we've got an area here of about 2 hectares. The more work we can do, not necessarily in the river channel, but up on the banks, will help to hold all this together in the long run. We've taken out the overstory. Now it's time really to get the next generation of trees coming in here.
Our project buys the seedlings, and then we do the agroforestry demonstration sites.
We've got fruits and nuts coming up here already. This is all coffee here, cocoa, coffee. It's all happening. So all we're doing is just adding to that with useful trees like this one. So this is Tavola, Terminalia catapa, which is a nut and a valuable timber. We've got Evie, which is it's a legume. It holds the riverbanks together, but it's a really good source of complex carbohydrates. We've been working the best part of 4 years now to sort of get to this point where we can just go to the nursery, we can pick up the trees, and we can come here and we can plant them.
We were able to then work with Craig in the value chain analysis and what the market opportunities are, and we're able to find that there actually is a gap in the market for nurseries and for Indigenous nuts.
My focus is on the value chain and a market-driven approach to research. What I think has been really important in this project is having a range of not only those private sector and public sector stakeholders in country, but having a research team that has a variety of skill sets. So they're not just saying, okay, we need to plant this because it grows well here. It's actually, we've been working together, and I've been throwing up ideas about, okay, this product may have some market opportunities, we can explore that in different ways, and then talking about how that might stabilise the bank. And at the same time, we're talking about the potential processing techniques and then how that fits in with the market requirements.
Now the nursery's double the size. Their women's club that runs the nursery's gone from earning $250 a year to $3,000 a year, and their orders are increasing from other donors operating in the area that are needing seedlings, but also private industry.
We sold it for 1 dozen. 12 seedling for $5 to help the individual women in the village.
And we've recently had Shangri-La suggesting that they would like to purchase seedlings, so we can see longevity of the nursery post-project, which is really exciting.
It's wonderful to see the women gain confidence through the years as a result of making that nursery. The last thing we want is to create a project where we're always dependent on, and it's always good to have a project where people are just empowered. We give them all the resources that they need, and they can independently move on.
This is an opportunity for them to get the income generating projects, just planting a seedling, just selling it off, instead of waiting for it to grow a few more years, 7, 10, 30 years. Yeah?
Then we looked at coffee. We spoke with the women and found out that recently they'd become very involved in supplying coffee to a local industry called Bula coffee. This coffee is wild coffee, so it's not productively managed.
Yeah, it's all wild. No one is formally planting some yet. Our biggest problem was that we couldn't get anyone to believe us that we would buy it off them because it's just been in the bush and it was just falling on the ground for years and years. So we started off just in one village. And now in our database we've got just over 1,200 people and it's about 38 or almost 40 villages now that pick the coffee each year.
We found that coffee is an interesting livelihood activity for women. They work in a group but they earn their money on their own. They like the fact that it's seasonal. So coffee really complements their subsistence activities and their social engagement in the community. Luke's actually had engagement with every one of our research scientists on the team. For example, Craig of the market and being able to package the coffee in a sustainable but also cost-effective way.
We've done some consumer research where we're looking at ethically conscious consumer base, particularly Australians and New Zealanders. They want to purchase things from the Pacific and they want to know that those products are actually giving back to the locals. Then how do we communicate that? How do we tell that story? And what are the attributes that are really important to that consumer that we can then feed back? So our research can not only understand that better, but do it all the way along the chain.
We really need to come at these problems from many different angles. For example, if we say, okay, well, the market wants this, but that's not going to work for the community, then we really don't go anywhere, because we need to be able to design systems that are going to be both what the market wants, but also work with the local communities, because the communities, they have their own needs and they have their own social systems, and we have to do things that are compatible. That adaptive research and that understanding all the different facets is really important to a successful outcome.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wayne.
To us, this is what a project is about. It's building on what the needs are and not what we think it should be. We've now got an agroforestry planting. It's out there. People are ordering the trees. They're planting trees for a whole range of reasons. And to us, that integrated approach, bringing in the marketing and community training, business training, it all builds into a process which then becomes much more sustainable.
What we really want to do at the end of the project is we want to leave sustainable change that's going to go on when we're finished. And that's really our end game, so that we can empower people and give them the skills so that they can do these things themselves once the donor money's finished.
40 metres by 40 metres. So we've got 8 metres, we've got the space. We're not having the planting